scam is out there. Can you imagine, like our pension is unfortunately, it's only 50% funded right now at the CTA, whereas the postal workers have the most solid pension out there. They passed laws in 2006 that require them to fund it 75 years in advance. That means there's people that haven't even started working at the post office. Like, I'm sitting here wondering if there's going to be any money in the pot when I get to retire. These people haven't even started working at the post office. Their health care and pensions paid for. I mean, what company does that? Nobody. So what they were trying to do is they're trying to shift the money around to show a loss, is what I think. I mean, that's, but they're trying to, okay, you're bringing in this, we're going to put that money over here, give the illusion of a losing system. Yeah, Amazon doesn't do that because they don't pay people. The ways they don't pay people, and they don't pay people health benefits for nothing. So they don't have that, and that, if, I don't know what you guys think, is the attack on the postal workers, is this the Bezos thing?
I think it's a lot more cynical than that.
Is it?
So with employees,
Yeah.
he was the
Postmaster Jeff.
Part of like suppressing the vote.
Yeah.
Remember, like there were all those election ballots that people were afraid wouldn't get in on time, and so like most people in 2020 made it to the polls in person than any other year because they were freaking out, and then sure enough, like their fears were realized with the most recent election. So like the government estimated 5 million votes were suppressed.
Okay.
Which makes a difference.
That is huge. Yeah, I know, because the thing with the service versus, like, the postal service versus Amazon, let's give it a different way, Federal Express.
Yeah.
If I mail something out of the post office, they're going to come to the middle of nowhere and pick up my mail. I mean, they have boats in some areas that they deliver mail by. They hit every corner of the state where you could suppress a ton of people just by privatizing, because then they're going to refuse, just like Amazon. They will refuse our neighborhoods in Chicago that are too violent, there's too much crime, and then they'll send that same package. Guess how that package gets there? By post office. When I was walking my dog, I live over the border in Indiana, but I was walking my dog during lockdown, during coronavirus. Amazon was having trouble getting their packages out, getting people to drive trucks, do all this stuff. It wasn't even my post, it's just a gentleman I talked to every morning. They had the old trucks, and his little truck was so filled with Amazon packages, he could barely fit in the thing. So we basically, our tax dollars bailed out Bezos during coronavirus because he couldn't even get his packages from his humongous robotic warehouses to your door. The post office stepped in, gentlemen like this, and it takes them a lot of time. They have their mail bag, and they're delivering everything from junk mail to letters to every single house in my neighborhood. Then they have to reroute with large packages with their scanners and scan times and whatever they're tracking. So it's like additional work they even put on the postal workers. Then they complain about the service. It's like this service just kept Amazon going in the rough spot.
What were you saying with the video? Before the video was recorded, you all were discussing service, profit, business. It's not making a profit. Public transportation is not making a profit. Postal service not making a profit. Could you go back to that? Just dig more deeper into that?
Yeah, I think I started off kind of with public transportation, that it did start as a profitable business. You know, you had, I don't know how you got the Zerk?
Yeah.
It was this transportation mobile in Chicago, and I was telling how horrible the service was.
Early 1900s.
Or in late 18.
Yeah.
So the service was so horrible that, being such a union town, there was pressure put on the mayor to say, hey, we need this in the hands of the people. That's what the union people wanted. We wanted the transportation. Don't renew their franchise. And they got a mayor in there that was sympathetic to their need, but instead of giving it to the people, he gave it to the government. So then now you have a separate, you know, like right now, it's going through different evolutions over the years, but right now you have a separate government entity, the CTA, that takes funding from wherever they can get it, from the city, state, and federal. They got their, you know, and that's truly how it should be, and that's how it should run. And we always have this discussion: why do we even have to pay for this stuff? You know, it should be run by us, for us.
They used to have good public transportation in LA years and years ago, and then I think the other companies conspired. I'm not sure. It's somewhere in my head. I can't remember right now what I've heard
I
about
think the rubber tire companies, the corporations, Firestone,
They were part of it.
they literally bought up the public transportation
Yeah,
out
I
there
mean, you know,
and crippled it.
Yeah.
They destroyed all the infrastructure.
And that's a whole story in itself amongst the streetcars. One of the most environmentally healthy way to transport people through this city. I mean, you can go the GM route, the oil route, and the whole thing. They wanted to sell buses. They wanted to sell oil. They got together and said, hey, get rid of those efficient streetcars that never break down. And we'll put these things. When I was a kid growing up, I was right 1 block away from 69 Terminal in Philadelphia, which is a huge terminal with tons of buses. I'm trying to think of it's like, example would be like a 95th Street terminal.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so.
Or Rosemont.
Yeah, or Rosemont. You have the buses meeting the trolley, meeting the trains, and the L. Everything's happening. I used to wait for the school bus because they didn't want me to go to school in my neighborhood, so they sent me somewhere else. But I wait for the school bus it's where basically Market Street, and it was the lowest spot in that county. And I would get up in the morning, and you could literally see a cloud of diesel and smoke, and it was horrendous. So it's like you got rid of all the streetcars to add that to the environment, you know. And you can imagine, it's amazing how we've gotten better since I was a kid, you know, with these buses. You don't see, even if they're idling up there at 95th, you don't have this big cloud of smoke, but it's still being added to the environment, whether we see it or not. Whether we know we're breathing it, whether we know it or not. But like I said, that I think. What do you think? It's like I guess they're trying to introduce electric buses and things like that.
So there we go. What do they need though? Batteries.
Yeah.
And
So
where is that rare earth? Someone calls it raw earth, but it's actually rare earth. And the number one provider of that is the continent of Africa. And you have places in South America as well, you know, and
Yeah, we have the lithium mine in Ecuador and Democratic Republic of Congo.
That's right.
Like chopping out the
yeah, the IRC, man. Yeah.
like underage people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now we're looking at the post office.
Yeah.
And now they're gonna the joy.
Yeah.
The hell with the joy. But he's saying.
I don't know why Biden didn't get rid of them.
No, I know.
No, Biden. Remember, none of these. The Democrats don't work for the people.
No, I understand
You know,
that.
but this guy, you know, he's saying 10,000.
Yeah.
10,000.
Oh,
You wanna get
because
rid
they
of
all-
10,000? Yeah,
No,
I mean,
no.
it's crazy.
No,
It's nuts, you know, and I was reading that the financial analysts, the economists, haven't even calculated all of these government firing and forced resignations, you know, I mean, and we have not yet felt any ripples yet from this. but we
And then
will.
Tom brought up that economic effect. What did you say earlier about the dollar of,
Oh, yeah, for every dollar spent on public transportation, it brings back $3. I mean, people get to work, people go to sporting events, people shop. You know, if people don't have public transportation, the economy is gonna stall big time.
yeah, and
And that's how people get around town.
it is, and I mean, they can't even hire a school bus driver. The city of Chicago, pretty much uses it as their children's transportation. You know, that's what these kids are using to get to school, to college. You know, you know, that, you can't even put a dollar amount on, well, I guess Trump can, but you can't put a dollar amount on education, as far as I'm concerned.
So what do you think? They say privatize. Privatize the post office.
Yeah.
Oh, we privatize it. So then, what happens?
Yeah, see, I came
What
from,
happens to these jobs?
yeah.
And they gotta be replaced though, don't they? If
Well,
you
see,
privatize it, right? So
the-
what are you replacing them with?
I had a weird evolution in my own work life, where I started in the privatized industry, but then went into the union industry. I started in telecommunications, where it was just a bunch of rich people trying to shove responsibility, trying to shove any ownership of the responsibility to the worker. That's what they do. I work, 12 hours a day for probably 6 hours pay, and then if they found something that I did wrong, they're nailing you and withdrawing money. I had no benefits. I filed, I would get a 1099. It was just, it's horrible, and that's what they want to create essentially in the postal system, probably a franchise type scenario where some guy's getting rich for pushing a bunch of people in their own personal cars or the truck that he leases to them that says he's part of this scheme where he's not even an employee to deliver your mail. That's what it's gonna get to, I think. And then on our side, on transportation, it's a whole nother thing where, once again, you have one person, they're only concerned about their own pockets. They're gonna come in and replace me as a mechanic at CTA with their own person, and they're gonna put them on like a flat rate type of thing, where they're not, my love of my job is that I provide safe transportation. I fix things right the first time. I'm not sitting here trying to play a numbers game for anybody. I'm not, Elon Musk would fire me in a second, because I am not efficient, because I'm thinking of the people that take the train every day.
And they don't consider that the postal workers, the public transportation workers, aren't working by piece, by job.
Right.
We're there to do something for 8 hours, okay? Not being forced to do it by, you have to get this many in the quota. You have to, here, we'll give you a bonus if you cut and you go faster, But no, we have procedures we have to follow to make sure these trains and buses are safe.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start putting in, we're gonna, if you, instead of changing 4 brake pads on a rail car that you might get, and it, with a little other things during your day, they're gonna say, hey man, give us 16. Give us 16, and you'll suddenly start seeing what accidents happen.
Exactly.
You'll
Yeah.
see workers getting
Quality
hurt,
would really
right?
go down.
And it's just, but this is what they're driving for. So for the post office, can you imagine now? They're gonna fire these people, but replace them with some corporation it's gonna make that postal worker, that new postal worker, that privatized postal worker, have to make so many deliveries,
Yeah.
or you get docked.
Yeah.
It's coming.
And they'll do the same thing that they're doing now under DeJoy. And if you I talk to different postal workers, people, the big postal workers. I have my mother that is a retired postal worker, so that kind of, I guess that's what brought me more motivation to tie this in with us and them. If they do that, they're just going to take out any like I said, any responsibility. They're going to just throw your mail wherever it lands, and you're just going to be. They're going to be motivated by getting it done, not getting your service, I guess.
You know, I've come to the conclusion that the most dangerous lie is the half lie.
Yeah.
Because it contains an element of truth, but unless, like the whole thing about how the pension is funded.
Yeah.
They could point out, well, look at all this, and they don't point out that's because of the way it's funded. So, a complete lie is usually something people can see through and, you know, just say that's bullshit. But
Yeah.
the half lies are the ones that get people.
Right, right.
You know, and them are the ones you really have to watch out for, the ones that are grain of truth. It might only be a small grain, but there might be, you know, if you don't tell the complete story, it's like you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I once read an analysis of that. That doesn't give you any wiggle room. I mean, how many times have we heard that in a movie?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. You could Google it and see that's pretty all-encompassing. You know, there is no wiggle room there. And believe me, when they throw out their stuff, they're not telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So, them are dangerous lies when they come out like that.
But I did want to touch, because I did advertise it as such, but on the history of the 1970s Wildcat strike. And I thought it was just amazing. It's like what we go through in these governmental jobs. And I'm not going to show the movie today. I don't think it's an hour and a half. Has anybody checked that out? It's on YouTube, accessible. But it's the NALC, the National Association of Letter Carriers, they had a letter carrier narrate this. And it almost seems as if that letter carrier, I don't know what I'm sure they had people produce it. What do you think? You watched it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was production
People
value.
that cared.
Yeah, yeah. But this one guy, Wally Padula, is narrating this history. But what I love about it is my mentor in labor history always told us to go, you know, everybody's history is different. Everybody's history is their perception. So the amazing thing about this, it's all from the work. Well, it interviews politicians. It interviews what my friend here would call a union boss, right? You know, the president at the time.
The business agents.
Yeah, that's what they're about. But he interviews these different people. But the amazing thing to me was the workers and how the workers turned this thing that was a mess back then. Turned this thing into a movement, not by the leadership of the union, but it was the workers themselves. And then people just stepped up to lead, and it was kind of a organic, amazing thing that transpired. But
Powerful.
but it starts off. It spends almost a half an hour going over the history that leads up. So I you know, like I said, I had a couple people say, you know, you can't show that in its entirety if people fall asleep. But it's like I said, take a chance, you know, or take time, watch that. YouTube is called, I think it's called Revenge of the Good Guys. Is what it's actually called. But it starts off with the history, and it's always been a governmental job. Benjamin Franklin started the post office. They've always had the tie. Go ahead.
you know why they started the post office and why they have made it a public service?
No, not exactly. Do you have, yeah, go ahead.
Because they didn't have like telephones back then.
Right.
So in order, like, they didn't want to have like a public service. They didn't want to have privatized what you call it, a communication system that be privatized. Because you could easily, you're a fledgling nation, and it's like you're still up and coming. So you don't want that power of like who's sending messages to who to be. You just came off of tyranny. The monarchy or against
Right.
the monarchy. So you don't want that started forming again. So you don't want people controlling where everything goes. And that's the same thing about the internet. Like that was their form of the internet. Say postal service. That was the form of the internet in the 1800s. So that's how you communicated with the outside world. That's how you would find out, like, London is burning or something like that. That's the only way you found out about the world. And newspapers were often like free. That's how you disseminated information and broadcast. That was the broadcasting information system. And we can take parallels to that today. Is like, how much of, our communication services, right now are centered and privatized, and what kind of headache that's creating with the misinformation in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, and the fact that they want to privatize it is just kind of like a, it's a, replication of what they've already done with the internet now. Where the internet used to be this public service to everyone, it was a public good, but it's like been, coalesced into something, and basically we have a dead internet where it's filled with a whole bunch of bots disseminating a whole bunch of information. That it's like fairly there's more bot users than there are actually like real people on the internet, and then leading to people thinking that like, when you're on the internet, it's like are you even talking to real people? How do you even know?
Yeah.
And it's sad because there's a lot of people, my generation, people are tech literate.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand that this is what's happening, and they can tell. But there's a lot of people, like older folks,
Me,
maybe older than you, that are they're able to access things like Facebook and everything, but they don't understand like what's real and everything. It's like there's this kind of thing, and it's all going to come to the head because I hate like using the term like everything. It's like, oh yeah, they're going to turn that off. I used to say like everything is on the internal contradictions, but it is like based on the internal contradiction. It's like you have this base of people supporting you, but they're supporting you on basis of lies. And that a lie is just a discrepancy between what's in your mind and what's in actuality. And then once people find out what's going on in actuality, it doesn't go with what's actually people. Well, but anyway, what I'm saying is like, if the postal service being privatized is just like, I want to say it's like, it's kind of funny because it's like that's what's already happened to the internet. It's like why go? I guess you just want to make everything official, just like by having like, oh, it's a postal. But it's all going to come undone. Like, I live in hope that like fascism didn't. There's a reason why fascism didn't last that long. Maybe it lasted longer in Spain because Francisco was there for a while. But like in Germany and Italy, they didn't last. Those things didn't last that long. And I don't think the MLM version of fascism is going to be around for a long time. I think we are on the end of it. It's like we're in the snowstorm in April and not the snowstorm in November. If that makes sense. Where it's like it's better a snowstorm happens in April because spring's going to happen soon. And that's the hope. We never know the future, but it seems like
I hope you're right.
It's kind of like, have things really gotten that bad? Like, if you really honestly were to like choose between the two, the horrors of World War II versus the horrors of now, which one would you choose? Like, honestly, I feel that I would choose now times over before times because we have things like the internet, like we have a very huge like. I live a very high standard of living compared to like 1920s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I mean, people, are obviously, living in worse conditions, but I think the average American worker is much better off now than they were, there's no bread lines, but, at least people are financing their meals. Like, you can buy now, pay later type thing for their meals, but at least people are getting fed, not standing in bread lines. But anyway, I don't want to monopolize.
But we have protections now.
Yeah, we have protection, yeah.
But I would argue the point, I would just take you down to 29th and Wabash on a Saturday when they have open donation, and you'll see a line wrap 2 blocks down. We're keeping it a secret from us. I mean, nobody's covering it, but there's people, like I said, a 2-block long line, which it's an infrequent operation that they give out food on a Saturday. They have a tent set up for the intake, and they can't even handle it inside their building. So I do feel like where there are, and maybe I should be down there taking the picture when I'm down there to post that more frequently, but it has affected this country, but nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody's seeing it. Nobody's covering it. Fox News is not going to put it out there. That there's, I'm trying to think how many people. Well, my son's been trying to do some volunteer duties as he's in high school, responsibility with his graduation, and we did that, and then we did, at a food pantry. That, there is stuff out there, but they're being attacked right now also. So you already have the people 500 deep in a line for food, and now you're going to take the food away, is what I heard on the radio coming in. They're losing their funding for fresh vegetables. They're giving money right now from our government, which I totally agree with, to farmers who are having trouble selling their products. They're buying the products and then distributing them through these food kitchens. That's what me and my son were handing out, was this fresh produce. And there's like, no, that's, what do we call that? I don't know. Yeah, that's not me. It's simple. But it's like you're hurting 2 people at once with that one decision. You're hurting the farmer, you're hurting the people, and then, like I said, I see it maybe on the CTA a lot, the homeless people in the wintertime especially.
It's worse.
Yeah,
It's worse now.
they're spread out. They're on 12 different trains, but if you put all those people together, it's a lot. How many homeless people in
I
Chicago?
see it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm in CTA all the time.
Yeah,
And God, we actually have
Home.
CTA workers in our homes.
And it doesn't take much
I'm
to
a
to
union
happen.
rep. I'm a union rep. And a lot of my coworkers trust me, so they'll tell me, and the stuff they're doing to get by is heartbreaking.
And it just takes like one misstep and nobody there to catch you.
And
Or
they get fired.
one
They get
ball
fired.
and nobody to
We
catch you.
have multiple people. You witnessed
In our
own membership.
In our membership.
Who was evicted.
Because of that was
Her,
hard.
her landlord didn't even really tell her, but she had multiple tragedies of suicide.
In
her
this place.
cousins were shot, but it was a family that she took care of all these people. So now she has no job.
And like he's saying, she not only she didn't have a job, there was people depending on that
Yeah.
job. Her husband
And
was
that-
disabled.
That job was
And we
was
came
a
up.
40-hour part-time job. That's what they now have at CTA.
And I think a part-time job is 40 hours.
Yeah.
60 hours. Every
And they're all doing
customer service agent that I've talked to, or part-time, what do they call the part-time?
customer service assistants.
Assistants are part-time. They get a benefit option that is worth, I don't know, maybe it gets you to a veterinary clinic. I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
crap. It's not good health care. It's less than I get,
No
less than
dental.
Eric gets.
No dental.
No dental.
They're frontline workers.
No eye care. No.
They do get the vision.
Oh, they do get the vision
Little
now.
vision thingy.
But anyway, they have no time off.
No.
They have no time
Oh,
off.
they do get time off when they get written up for being sick.
Yeah.
When these poor people call
No.
off sick,
We-
they get written up.
We have no sick time.
Yeah.
stuff, what they'll do is they'll say, well, which I'm still trying to figure out, I've never seen this mythical sick book. But they're so in a bubble. They for years they've had their lingo and language, and they indoctrinated people that think that this is acceptable. We have a sick book. You sign the sick book. You're sick. How do you sign the sick? If you're sick, okay, but you sign the sick book, and then if you're out 7 days, then you'll get 5 days pay.
But that's only if you're full-time and you've been there a
But
year.
it's not even.
And you will be written up.
and it comes with a write-up. So, but you get sick, you take a day off. My son has an incident, I have to take off for him. It's a 1 day thing. It's not. So if I take between 1 and 3 days, it's no pay, 0 pay, and I get written up. We're not covered. We don't get the human rights that the citizens of Chicago
That's
get.
an eye-opener for me. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But it's written, we have this amazing Human Rights Act in Chicago that provides the worker at McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, everybody else with this thing, but our union signed a waiver to say we don't get that because CTA put the pressure on them to say we're not giving that to them. And the reason that it's rumored is that if we give them sick time, we don't have enough people to fill the spots on those trains. We already have trouble. In fact, last week, I'm in the shop, so I'm not on there in those train rooms seeing them leave in, leave out. But, we talk to each other. People, the switchman brings the train up there. Yeah, Chris, it's like, they didn't have, he goes, I don't know what are you talking about increasing service. He goes, we're not even hardly making service these days. He says, everybody, they're so sick of this place. They're not even showing up. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Sickness and injury is very high at the CTA.
Yeah.
And the injuries are typically from the work itself. Their bodies are breaking down, their shoulders and backs, both on the operation side and maintenance.
And the
Sounds
assault.
like
And
a
we're written
postal
up when we
worker.
get hurt.
Sounds like some postal workers.
Yeah.
And then the same thing,
There
the
you go,
same
there
thing.
you
It's
go.
like, it's amazing because we have such a tie with the postal workers. I want to stay on that. In fact, like one of my brothers at our shop, his wife walks around in Pullman, where the poor woman was killed, delivering mail. So we have that too. Can you imagine just going to work and knowing, you lost this person? We have people getting shot at. I have one switchman, his wife, was assaulted while operating a train. People reach through the window and punch women, on our operating a train. This is off topic, but it just struck me so funny. Okay, the trade unions that are pushing our bills, the trade unions that are saying, oh yeah, join us, we're going to make it safe for you guys out there. I was driving down 103rd. There's a project going on for People's Gas. A contractor's putting in pipe. There's 4 guys out there. 4 guys the size of me and bigger. Probably a lot badder than I am. Out there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in front of a school, beside a school. Okay? What do they have with them? They have a private security guard in a truck on that job site. That's one of the safest places we think of when, if that guy driving the bus on 103rd is not worried about that. But we have places a lot worse than that. We don't have, that's when somebody wants to take an effect and keep people safe, it costs money. How much money does it cost to have one security guard for 4 grown men that, like I said, I wouldn't mess with them. I would, even if I had a gun, I would think twice about the size of these. I think it was an iron worker. I don't know what their crafts were, but there were several hard hats out there and several people. But like I said, we're talking about. What neighborhood is that? Is that Pullman? It's that
103rd?
103rd and the school over there.
Roseland.
What's that? Yeah,
Roseland.
it's still Roseland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's right on the border though. You go a couple blocks down here. But like I said, it's not really a bad area, but they protect their people. We don't have that. You have a bus driver in a bus by himself. You know, you have a train operator. How many people on a train? At rush hour?
It could be a couple hundred.
Or, 8-car train is full of,
Yeah.
yeah, full of people, one person. Most of them, my wife's like 5 foot tall, most of these women that work there, I mean, you got people the size of my wife protecting herself, protecting 500 people. It's like when you take this seriously, you're not doing shit right now. You know, and then they run a couple dogs that I think they get at the pound before they come out there because, well, I'm not going to go in there to this whole thing, but I think the private security the CTA is putting out there is a scam in itself. I think you follow the money on that, you're going to follow it right back to the road. Okay, but you see the dogs that they put out there on events and stuff like that with muzzles. What are they there for? I mean, it's like, what is that? Is that there? You feel secure? Is that
Security theater.
Yeah.
Security theater.
There you go. Yeah, and that's what we're as postal workers, as transit workers, we're tired of the theater. We're tired of the theater. We want jobs for these kids. We don't want them running around the street wanting something and thinking they got to take me out to get it. You know, we want those kids to have training, have jobs, and school opportunities.
You know what they do in St. Louis area? At least about 2 years ago, they started a pilot program on trains, like mental health.
Yeah.
Mental health program. So they have two mental health workers accompanied by public police officers.
Right.
Like actual police officer, not like some guy private security guard. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But please, people, I don't need more. Because that's not your job. Sounds like you're behind them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't need somebody to take care of someone who's like in an emergency, in a mental health crisis. You don't need to have someone who's caring for someone who's homeless
Mm-hmm.
and otherwise disadvantaged.
Exactly.
Who has all these needs that aren't met unless they're at least sheltered and, they're trained on public transit.
Mm-hmm. And there's been talk of that, but the limited number that they're talking about, they're not talking about assisting that person. I think all they want to do, and there's no details, okay? And I think we're going to see something that may be called an ambassador if they're lucky and get this bill through, okay? But they're going to be like fodder. They're going to be just thrown out into this war zone. And what are they going to do? They're going to do the same thing that the CPD is being asked to do. When there's something going on, then you respond. Other than that, stay out of the fire. You know, they're reactive. They're just reacting to a bad situation. That's all they.
I have a question for you. What about the CTA board? It's an appointed board.
Yeah.
I remember years ago.
Where do we start with that,
Ernie
man?
Banks, the former Cub Hall of Famer, he was on the CTA board.
Yeah, just tells you what a theater that is.
Yeah, that was theater. But the CTA board, aren't they supposed to oversee this? And
They are made up of, what's the breakdown? Appointees from the mayor, appointees from the governor,
It's like almost 50-50.
and,
And the president is the mayor's choice.
yeah.
So the
So,
mayor is actually our boss.
yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
So, that board, I watch the board meetings. If you get a chance, that's on YouTube too, if you're interested. It's not that great, but you get a lot of information there about what's going on with transit if you're taking it. But the thing is, have you ever seen the board question the president on any occasion? They may ask a question, but in the end, they're like a rubber stamp. They just approve what he says because they know who took them to the dance. You know, they They dance with the one who brought them.
Yeah.
And that's all you got going on there. And so we've had a lot of brethren that I have no problem, and I know they're in touch with the working class in their neighborhood. Okay, so I'm not out here they got no place on my board, okay? They don't know what a mechanic does, they don't know what a rider, they may have a somewhat aspect of the riders, but they don't know the inner workings of this.
In the Justice Coalition, and we're CTA workers, bus and rail, we work together, you know, Chris and I are involved. We have presented solutions to reform and change the Chicago Transit Authority. And one of the most important proposals that we have is to have an elected board that's comprised of CTA workers and CTA riders.
Yeah.
Because we know how to run the Chicago Transit Authority, and you all, the riders, know
Even
what
better,
you
even
need.
better.
Okay, we've got people on this board that don't ride these buses and don't ride these trains, and they're making decisions about our lives. No, that is,
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's missing on all these proposed bills. One bill that's out there to fund the CTA claims that they already have them picked out. They got their yes man picked out from labor, whoever it is, guaranteed. But they say they want to have a non-voting member of labor on the board.
that's the first bill.
Yeah, that's the first
same
bill.
one that you-
And that's the one that combined all the boards into one.
The
And
MMA,
But the MMA, yeah, what is it?
mixed martial arts.
No. But they got that, and then our union is, and,
Leadership, our president.
but they represent us supposedly, but I haven't had a word to say about it. And I can't even get a straight answer on it. Is the bill, this devil in the details, give me half the story bill that they're putting out right now calls for, which I like, the ambassadors, but that's not in the bill
It's not
right
in the
now.
bill.
But they handed that out at a meeting, that they're gonna get that in there, and, but like you said, I think we gotta start taking a look, you brought up something amazing, I'm gonna start reaching out to St. Louis, and really look into that aspect, we both should.
But even that isn't not necessary, but what I'm saying, even that does not address the foundation of the problem, and that is mismanagement.
Yeah,
So if you, just look at it this way, raise your hand if you were born in the 1970s or earlier. Okay, all right. So if you lived in Chicago, you might recall when it was not rush hour, when it wasn't rush hour, we had 4-car trains, 2-car trains, and we had 2-person crews.
Oh, yeah.
2 people. You had a motorman, a conductor.
That's the
What
one
do
thing
you
I
see
agree with
now?
that guy Willie Johnson, the guy that ran for mayor.
Yeah,
The one point he made that I agree with, we should bring that job back.
that's right. And then, but the problem is, look now at the red line and the blue line. 8 cars all night. So you are inviting people to live on the train and the buses and the 6-car trains on the green line, 8-car trains on the orange line all night. No, it is chaos. And what's happening is these people, poor souls who are suffering, are living on our train, and every train is a toilet. And me and Chris, when we work on these trains, we're working on stuff inside the trains, the car bodies. So we are on the floor, grabbing hard drives, replacing heating elements from the doors that people urinate in, because there's no toilets. And what do? And now the trains are being destroyed because they're running them as just shelters and group homes and jails. You know, and who has to take care of them? The poor operators and the janitors and the services. If you cut down the concept, 2-car trains, 4-car trains, two-person crews. The workers will be happier, the riders will have a train, and homeless, those who are homeless are not gonna have a place to live there. And we have to then provide homes for them that they can afford. So we have allowed these politicians and these billionaire bloodsuckers of the poor to make the CTA workers have to take care of the homeless population. I'm sorry.
People feel safer on a two-person train.
Yeah, no, that is, and that, it's something that, Eric has just been bringing up since day one, since day one.
You have your
But-
head on the clock, I don't want you to run.
No, yeah, I do, cause,
We're at 10 o'clock.
yeah, we're at 10 o'clock, we're gonna head out at 10:30.
Okay.
Um,
The postal workers.
Yeah, so back to the post, they have just the same condition with, safety, but then it brings up another thing. We go above and beyond, most of us go above and beyond as far as the way we treat the homeless people, when the train, comes to the end of the line. It's not my responsibility when I'm on, the only time I ride, on the train at work is when we do, the de-icing in the winter time. So I'm on the back end of the train, and then when that de-icer it's an in-car train that carries people as well. When that train goes out of service, or it needs to be refilled or whatnot, I'll assist the operator and escort the people off. And that's something, imagine somebody on drugs, on a bender, they're laid out on your train, and you just have to let them know, hey, you gotta get off and move on. Very good with those people, just like the postal work, bringing us back to the postal workers. They have a lot of stuff that they do that's not in their description. When we had the hearing here several weeks ago, Cam, you were there, right? For the postal workers?
I was here.
Oh, you were here, Tom.
Yeah.
But they talked about how many times when they see mail building up in a mailbox, that they'll call the authorities. They'll look out for people. They'll make sure that, the medicine's still sitting in the mailbox. They'll check up on the elderly. They'll talk to neighbors to have them check. They know they're people. You're not gonna have that with privatization. My Amazon guy changes every week. Sometimes it's in a car, sometimes it's in the truck that breaks down. Usually, that battery powered thing runs out of juice right at the end of my street every other day. To me, in the post that my posted always laughs about those.
And they probably write them up.
Yeah, because he wasn't fast enough. He idled too long, or whatever they do,
Didn't recharge enough.
Yeah.
Improper charging.
And I'm sure they're tracked on GPS.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you appreciate it privately, sorry.
You got it.
So you appreciate it as you can. So what Detroit did that got everybody so upset, he shut down and didn't replace broken down ones. He didn't keep those sorting machines running.
Okay.
So it wasn't human error. It wasn't like a lot, like there was a lot of COVID delays.
Mhm.
Delays into like a whole bunch of food foods and like medicine, like you were saying, wasn't associated with all like balance. It seemed very intentional.
Yeah, like they're sabotaging poor. I've always felt that way. I don't.
So that's
No,
like,
and
that's
it-
a known quantity. So like the
Mhm.
process of privatization is like you break that, you sabotage your public good. You
Yeah.
public services. So then you say, oh well, we need Amazon now. Oh, we need you need to drive a car or get an Uber because like the bus shut down.
Yeah.
But that's all part of the process because like people who profit from that, like you said with Firestone in LA and like Musk with like the environmentally friendly transportation.
Yeah.
And you see what I'm saying
Like
about
all
the,
these like one person cars are gonna do more for the environment than like a bus will because
Yeah. You can have a diesel bus that probably.
it's privatized.
Yeah.
That's the answer, and everyone's like, it's kind of manufactured consent, but it's not the same. It's not the same piece as the military.
that's what I'm trying to tell y'all about the 8-car trains out here. Man,
Yeah.
that's a lot of wear and tear on these trains. I'm from the operations side, but now I'm a mechanic, and I work with Chris, so I wear this when I'm out here, with people. But, we have to inspect these trains, and they're falling apart. We have a whole new series of trains, I don't know if y'all seen it, on Blue Line now, it's a 7,000.
All the LED light ones.
Oh my God, they're just a disaster, and even the people who manufacture the trains that come and still do warranty work on it, wow, this was terrible, they didn't take care of it. And they don't even give us mechanics the bulletins and the paperwork we need, the instructions and the details we need for our inspection to replace this stuff. So we're just like blind, feeling around with new tech. And what do you think's gonna happen? Boom! And we've had that. We've had whole batteries melt on these brand new trains, not because we're incompetent, lazy, ignorant. It's because the CTA mismanagement doesn't give a damn.
Yeah, and it's curious.
And we could get the operator, these trains are blowing up, and the switchman told me at Rosamond, I didn't tell you this.
Yeah.
The switchman told me, he said, Brother Eric, you need to tell these idiots that these trains are going on fire and they're going to kill us all. This is what he told me.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
say blame the workers,
That's it.
blame the workers.
Blame the workers.
And that's,
And
you know
that's
what?
they do. They write
It's
them up.
much easier.
And the key thing.
Human error.
Yeah. We had another, I'm sorry, one more. We had this on the Blue Line, a 7,000 series train, new train, right? The train, if you ever feel this, and the train suddenly stops and you feel like you're gonna fly through, that's called an emergency brake. Well, guess what? The way they designed it in their rules of making the operator stand all the time, she accidentally went into emergency brake. And all of them are complaining about this. The way it's designed, they go into emergency brake. Well, now after complaints, you know what the CTA mismanagement's doing? They're writing up the operators.
Or
With
improper.
safety
What do they call it when,
Improper operation.
yeah, when somebody complains, they'll
And that's a 2-year hit.
write people up. They
2
won't
year
even,
hit.
in a lot of cases, they won't even investigate. They don't even investigate. They take what's their bot or whatever.
Yeah, if you complain, which you should if there's a problem, but just keep in mind though, if it's about operation, they're gonna hit a person and blame them for it. So, just realize what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that person's probably sleep deprived because they're forced to work overtime.
Can I ask, sorry, maybe this is too incendiary, but like there's a DMT, it was a shit show. And it wasn't just CTA's fault, but it.
All it was.
I was on a bus, we got stopped by the police twice. And the bus driver actually got us to our destination because she was just like, she just went her way.
Yeah.
Like, he stopped and they put up all these stuff and said, oh, you can't go this way. Very clear, path through whatever it was, Rush, Rush Hospital, something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
They said, oh, it's a safety concern. It's like, well, yeah. What if people on the bus are actually
So
on
like
the way?
yeah.
What are they gonna do? Get an Uber? They can't cross. They can't walk.
Yeah.
It's all those different concerns. And then the bus driver was like, well, I don't know what to do. And so she couldn't talk to the police because they were just like, no, you can't do anything. You stay here for a few hours. So we were delayed by 3 hours just from one end of Ashland to the other. And yeah, she was just on the radio with another bus driver. Figured out, okay, so they're not looking go.
Yeah.
So she had to go against the police. I don't know what that was about. It just seems like.
Well, the focus for the CTA, and the only reason I know this is my old coworker of the company I got laid off from, ETP, was working at convention. He said, I didn't know you guys had all those new buses.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, you should see it over here. Their focus was providing service for the Democratic diplomats as they came in and out of Chicago. They didn't care about the rioters that week. They evicted the homeless off the train. They, and in fact, I mean, to the point, I kind of tied dots together. There was a lot of violence after that I would probably associate with you take a man off of where he's surviving and then throw him somewhere. I don't know, how do you, if we constantly go on these trains, we all do, and there's homeless on there, and then they amazingly disappear during the convention, where did they go? Okay, and then if you take me out of my house and say, come back in a week, I'm gonna be pissed. And same as all of us, they take us out of our apartment, we're gonna be pissed. But it was theater again. I love that. I can steal on that. But they literally took the best buses, not for you, not for the riders. They took the best buses that they had, their favorite employees that they have, not the person that would speak up against injustice, and they put their handpicked on those buses. And how many? I don't know. I'm going by my guy who saw it with his own eyes. This dog and pony show, CTA, busing the convention here, people going to the convention. Yeah. No, everything. There wasn't a detailed myth for them, but that's what service we need.
Yeah.
Right there. That's an example. People, whatever that costs, that's what's going to cost you every day of the week, because that's what we deserve. The same as our international president was there. Yeah, he got selfies with every single politician in this country. If you get that busting, there's not one selfie on his Facebook, on the international group, of him with those bus drivers. That we didn't even know that happened. Like I said, if I didn't have a friend in a tent watching the communications for that whole event on call, I wouldn't even know that happened. So it's dirty. It makes me sick.
The riders, you all got to imagine this, all right? Because it starts in our imagination. Imagine one car servicer for each rail car. So if there's 8 cars at Howard Terminal or O'Hare, there should be 8 people.
He's saying at the end of the line.
I want you to see that. I want you to see that. But imagine how it will smell. So like one janitor per station instead of one janitor per 3 stations.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, it's real. Yeah. Just imagine this. 2-person crews. You've got somebody who's operating the train, making sure that right of way is clear, and you got someone who's helping the riders open the doors, get you lost and found. Imagine that. Your train is going to be stopped for a lost and found item on the 7th car with 1 person, train operation. But if there's 2, the train keeps going.
Yeah.
And that conductor goes and takes care of that. Answers your questions.
And even from a mechanical aspect, things break down. Go ahead.
A good friend of mine, Anthony Punisada, he was the Cook County Commissioner. Now he's becoming the alderman in my ward, the 35th Ward. What should I tell Anthony that has to be done?
I got it.
Does the
Yeah,
city
you got it.
council,
I got it.
does the city council have a public transportation committee?
They have their transportation
I'm
committee, but
sure they got
I'm trying to think who
Now,
needs that.
when I see
I don't know.
Anthony, because the former alderman is becoming the head of the park system,
Yeah.
Rosa, and it looks like Johnson, until the next election, Johnson gets to appoint the guy to fill in.
Mhm.
It's probably gonna be Anthony.
Yeah.
What should I tell Anthony?
What you see, what you feel. You're a writer. You have more say in this than anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't feel safe on there. You tell them you don't feel safe. That's what we got to tell. We have to start listening to the riders. It's the only way that this gets fixed. It's the only way. I mean, even my job, I need to hear what I hear my wife's like, yeah, she takes the South Shore into the city every day. I hear her tell me, I go and sit down and the seat was like had stuff all over it, grease and all that. And it's like, man, you know what? I have to be conscious of what I do so somebody doesn't get ruined sitting in something I mean, when I hear from her stories of mechanical, she always tells me the mechanical issues. Oh, and then she calls me why they're happening, and I have to diagnose what's going on again. But those things that we go through and we hear help us become better. If you have an article was written about Norvell Carter being tone deaf. CTA as a whole, from my manager to the top, is tone deaf. It's my way or the highway. My way or the highway. That's it. There's
Don't even
no.
talk about
I
it.
have solutions for all the trains that broke down this winter. That 8-car trains were nope. You know, the engineer said to do this, but stand on one foot and scratch your head while you're doing it. You know, because and if you catch you with both feet down, we're gonna write you up. You know, that's their solution. Run it like a military. There's no question. There's no input. We have no input. No, zero input in safety
Hey, Carrie.
or anything.
So-
Hey, Harry.
So basically, I'm gonna tell Anthony that he should get in touch with a representative of your union.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking at one.
He's a little bit further south, but he's a Chicago resident. He'll be happy to
Okay.
touch
Okay.
base.
But you know, there's some bullet points that we have as a coalition, okay? And I'm gonna give this, I wrote this down to give to you, all right? But we want paid sick leave, all right? As per municipal code 6-130, all right? We need 2-person crews. I want you to see how all this is gonna benefit the riders. Full-time jobs for all CTA workers. We're sick and tired of these poverty-time jobs, 40 hours a week, 60 hours, 80 hours a week. We're tired
And
of
we
these
haven't
things.
even touched on
With
the
proper tools and equipment. We have computer-driven training. At Howard Shop, where I used to work, we have 2 laptops to diagnose these trains. And you got almost 50 people.
how many trains in the shop?
We're at 98 Shop now, on the south side, me and Chris. We got like maybe 2.5 laptops. But we got to take all the laptops at one time because one may not work with this and one may not work with that because we're using emulation from Windows 98. This is madness. The jacks that lift our trains high in the air are falling on their own. And do you know what they do when that happens? Blame the workers.
Yeah.
Drug test that bastard.
Yeah.
You better not eat any poppy seeds. Brick and mortar bathrooms for all CTA workers. We got bus operators going into porta potties. Women, some pregnant, in the winter, porta potties. We got customer service assistants. No bathrooms, no toilets in their station. Not one.
How do they get to the bathroom?
The only way they can go is they gotta go call the dispatch control. Say, I need someone to pick me up and take me. Imagine you're pregnant.
You know, the
8
reason
months,
why
7
I'm
months
saying
pregnant,
that,
right? And the woman who's 8, 7 months pregnant, her bladder's being squeezed by the baby she's carrying. And now she has to hold it. Or they walk down and go to the next station by themselves. Because they can't hold it anymore. Last thing, no more union busting. So take that to the alderman, please.
Yeah, write your contact
I'm
information.
gonna give you my card.
Yeah.
But we'll circle back as to the that is our fight for sure. That's our fight for
The
sure.
Reader, the Chicago Reader ran a couple articles in 2024
Yeah.
laying out the problems that CTA employees have. And one of them was washroom service.
That's
That
right.
is a big.
They came to one of our protests at Forest
You
Park. We had a
know,
protest.
all through
They
COVID,
covered it.
and I mean, I've never really experienced it even working for a slimy contractor. They don't clean in our facilities, they don't have a janitor.
No.
We clean our own bathroom that services how many, hundred people?
And then they get
well, I mean,
yelled
we,
at when they-
you know,
Because we don't even have
sometimes,
soap.
sometimes
We
they
don't have
will,
soap, right?
that when it gets real bad, the managers will take somebody and have them do it, you
Yeah.
know, and he'll go in with, and he's not
No,
even
no
a trained janitor.
We have no janitors in each shop. We take people who clean the trains. Cleaning trains and cleaning facilities are two different things.
It's
Two
kind of,
different crafts.
and that's what happens in a lot of it's kind of an example of once you start doing the time studies. For years, I think what we found was these were beautiful facilities that were kept clean,
Yeah.
but they would pull a guy off cleaning a train and say, you know what, your job is going to be to do this, this, and this. Well, they decided to start monitoring, everybody's labor, and then they took it away. They took away our janitor because he was never titled as such. They used to have two for the big shop, is what they had, two guys that would, they usually the most senior car cleaner would take care of your janitorial
They're
service.
scabbing us against each other when we're in the same freaking unit.
Yeah.
Now what they got, the customer assistants at the station, now what they're doing, they're scabbing the flagmen. The people who come in also, their poverty time jobs, and scabbing them against them. Because it saves them some money. And it keeps the flagmen with their hours because they may not have any construction projects to secure.
So they flag and pick up a CSA job?
Right.
Okay.
But they're skipping those who want to do the overtime and are eligible as per the contract.
But I'm getting back to what you're saying. To me, it just blows my mind. My head just wants to explode. You have a part-time job, and when I talk to these part-time people to survive, they're working 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
That's a part-time job as a CTA.
And they're dying on the job. We had on the blue line.
And then,
one of them.
and then the sad thing too is, like there was a bad piece that went out this week. Did you see that with our guy in there, with these people with high salaries amongst the workers?
Overtime.
What I thought was we're the majority. I would say we're a minority union, the ATU.
What do you mean minority?
I mean minority. We were what 95% minority probably.
What do you mean, like non-white?
Non-white,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Okay. Now the trade unions are white unions,
Majority white.
majority white. They have restrictions put on them because it's governmental work, but they still, get their kids in there to replace them, and all these things happen. But if we got the contract that these mothers got as far as double time for overtime, things like that, that article would be even worse. But we are even paid less than our other trades on these.
You gotta understand. These 8 people,
Yeah.
they say, I know some of them personally, I've worked with them. I want you to understand, these people are about to retire. Our pensioners haven't gotten a raise for decades. There's no record. So if you retired 20 years ago, you're still getting the same pay from back then, okay? And they are literally living at work. And they are giving up so much life energy that when they retire, they understand completely they don't have many years left. So they are trying to be able to live respectably. They're not living beyond their means. You've seen, brother, his car. It is nothing lavish, okay? But these overtime people, it's just 8. That's all it is. There's over 10,000 of us. And they're going to make a big deal about this because these people just want to live when they retire.
And then, and then
they're able to live in the city. But now we have a retiree, one who's a member of the Justice Coalition. She had to leave and go to Wisconsin and move in with a relative.
Yeah.
This is a rough area. She can't afford to live in Chicago.
Yeah, got pushed out of uptown.
Rogers
Park, how many years? Like 30, 40 years?
Forever. That's her community. She had to leave and go move in with a relative.
You guys keep in touch with other unions, like the New York Union? You ever communicate with them?
Eric have you talked with, is John?
Yeah. Did John?
Maybe tell about that part.
Yeah, I mean, there are some militants in CW Local 100 and others, and there's some ATU unions as well. But we are the minority. Those who speak, like you hear me and Chris, we are actually repressed within our own unions, by our own elected leaders, our own president, right? So we have to build with these other people in these other states. Philadelphia, there's some others too. You know, we're slowly coming together, slowly. And, you know, labor notes and stuff like that is where we can congregate, maybe this DSA convention coming up, who knows, whatever. You know, we go wherever. So absolutely. Absolutely. And we do little podcasts sometimes, but we gotta do more. But
Yeah, no, the Earth does a good job. He's an animal when it comes to social media. It's just like, he's out there everywhere.
What's your rate?
what do you mean, my rate? Speaker? Oh, no, I just need your prayers so I don't get fired.
I know, it is.
They're always
It is.
trying to write me up for
Yeah.
everything.
No, we have to
The
look at it.
president is right there. Get him.
He's already wrapped up.
No, anywhere you want the CTA worker to speak, me and Chris are available. Chris is a monster. Yeah, I'm nice and sweet.
But, yeah, there is I find that with myself, it's that wherever I'm at, I'm with the workers.
That's right.
And,
That's what we do.
And there's another me that's with the management there. And that brings it, actually, with the postal system, and maybe it's a deficiency with the CTA, you have to take a civil service test. You have to test. I had to take a written, 3 different practical tests to show my ability to do the job that I do.
I knew Chris was here when I saw him.
You like the sign? He's
Hi, Mommy.
But they, our management is just off the street. Okay, and we're gonna wrap up, head out, and we wanted to take the bus. Is that okay with everybody? Take the bus.